is to always help you have a better life. And part of that is learning how to properly save so you and your family can have a bright future. I'd now like to welcome Wade Slome, the president of Sedoxia Capital Management, to the show to tell us why now is the time to start saving for your children's future. Welcome to the show, Wade. So glad you came down all the way from Orange County.
Yeah, great to be here.
And you are big time. You have a best-selling book, you've been on all the national shows, and now you're making time for us, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Okay, so let's break it down. Why, in a nutshell, is it important to save for your children's future now?
Well, I think it's important always, but especially now, if you look at the bigger picture, people just aren't saving like they used to. If you look at adults, the average adult only has $25,000 saved for retirement, and we all know how expensive it is to live in Southern California.
Yeah.
So starting with kids at a young age is very important to establish those learning capabilities to be financially savvy at a young age.
So you're not just saying save for their college. You're trying to teach the children how to save so they learn. So for example, my children do commercials when I produce them, and all the birthday money, I make them put it in a savings account. They don't even, so if they get birthday money, it goes right in a savings account, and they'll want to spend it. And I'll say, really? How really important is that? Let's think about this. Let's weigh out how bad do you really need this.
That's a great lesson to teach your kids, because beyond just having them learn the concepts of interest and compounding, they get familiarized with computers, so they can go online and they can look at their accounts grow over time. And they can also help you with those complex financial statements that are tough to learn with these savings accounts.
They love when I go to the bank and I have to do my banking. They want to know, well, how much money do we have in our savings now? And as it grows, they're so excited about it. Now they've learned to appreciate the fact that the money's growing instead of taking it away and spending it. They get more excited about that it's being saved, it's there, safe, and it's growing.
Exactly. I mean, it really builds confidence, and getting their allowance or building, doing chores really establishes those skills that they need at a young age. And it helps them understand between the needs and the wants. So, I want the new cell phone, I want the new video game. Well, that's great. Well, you're going to need to save for that.
Right. They asked me, I still have the iPhone 4S. I don't need the 5. Not big enough difference for me to warrant the extra money, and change my data plan that's more expensive. That's okay. I can live with the 4S. So I'm always having these conversations with my daughters too. So kids really, really watch the parents, right? They really do. And I will tell you, I don't pay full retail for anything because it's insulting. And my kids watch me do that as well. They get into this game where let's find the best deal. So what do you do with your children? How do you teach them that lesson?
Yeah, well, parents really are the CEO of the family. They are the role model. They establish the culture from the top down. And it's not only the parents, but it's family members and friends who can also contribute to their birthday gifts. And some of the ways that I teach for younger kids, it's great just going to the grocery store. If I want to compare the prices of Oreos and Chips Ahoy, my kids can see, well, what's the savings and percentage-wise? Or just clipping coupons. It's changed a little bit with the internet, but you can go online and comparison shop. Once the kids get older, a great idea is to establish an investing account. And you can give them money to invest in things like Walt Disney or Apple Computer, things that they know.
How old do they have to be for that? That's fun. How old is that?
Yeah, well, I think at a young age, in that 5 to 7 range, you want to make sure they understand how many quarters are in a dollar or what a dime's worth. Once you start getting to middle school and high school, I think that's when you can introduce these investment accounts where they're actually investing in companies, and that's a little bit more complex concept, but is a valuable one.
So cool. Okay, so then we talked about the little kids. What's the next step as they get older?
Yeah, well, I think budgeting is very important. We know college tuition is like an anchor for a lot of these young adults. It's tough enough getting a job. To be anchored with this mountain of debt is worse. So the earlier you can teach them in high school how to budget, that I need my expenses to be less than my income and my savings is a valuable lesson because
We don't get that. We don't get that, and especially in this state. This country doesn't get it, but the state is particularly bad about that.
absolutely, college tuition is skyrocketing. The average cost is about $20,000 now, and the tuition prices are increasing at 2 to 3 times the overall inflation rate. So when my kids are old enough to go to college, you know, the prices will probably be double what they are today. So you really can't start early with those adults to teach them how to save and invest and spend.
And not only that, you're building confidence and self-worth, and that trickles into all areas of their life, which is so important to be successful in all areas in your life. Correct?
Yes, and I think you touched upon it a little bit earlier from the big picture when we're talking about Social Security and entitlements. For the younger generations, we can't count on that to be at the same level as it is before. And so beyond college, you know, to establish those skills at a young age is important as well.
So you are the author of a book, How I Managed $20 Billion by the Age of 32. 101 truths about investing. We got the volume on there. Viewers are looking at that right now, but $20 billion. How did you come to do that?
Well, it was a phenomenal experience. After going to business school at Cornell, I worked for a company called American Century Investments and had the opportunity to work on one of the 10 largest mutual funds in the country. So I got to travel across the world and interview executives, everyone from Jeff Bezos at Amazon, Meg Whitman at eBay, Ralph Lauren, and I got to shine the light to their face and ask them tough questions because we had 1 million investors that we were investing their money into those companies. So it was a great experience, and now I started my firm, Sedoxia Capital Management in Newport Beach.
How's that doing?
It's doing great. It's doing great. I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster ride in the financial markets, but it was a great time to start because the markets have done phenomenally well since I've started.
How do your principles with saving for your children and what we should be teaching your kids, how do you apply that, and how's that generalize into what you're doing for other people managing their money?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that not only adults and kids make is that this disease of short-termism. We're constantly bombarded with information in this Twitter, Facebook world, and it's difficult to look long-term. And so that's what we really spend a lot of time with our clients, is to focus on the long-term and try to ignore a lot of these molehills that are, you know, come out here that people try to make mountains out of them.
I love it. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll come back with some tips on parents that you can do right now. Coming up.
Parents, they want to be the security blanket for their children, but what's going to happen is they're going to leave them out in the cold if they don't teach them the proper financial decision-making skills. So you can stop that short-term tantrum by giving them what they want, but again, as we talked about before, teaching them those skills to think longer term are important. So it's really a good idea to not spoil your children, but it happens.
Okay, I'd like to welcome back Wade Slome, the president of Sedoxia Capital, to the show. We're talking about important tips you need to know, what you need to teach your children now so they have a better chance of being successful and have enough money to retire and have a great life. This is really important. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. You know, I see very often parents who have a lot of money, they seem to give their children everything. If they want it, they get it. Can we spoil our children, in your opinion?
Absolutely, it is a problem. And parents, they want to be the security blanket for their children, but what's going to happen is they're going to leave them out in the cold if they don't teach them the proper financial decision-making skills. So you can stop that short-term tantrum by giving them what they want, but again, as we talked about before, teaching them those skills to think longer term are important. So it's really a good idea to not spoil your children, but it happens all the time.
And also to learn, I think it's important as a parent, they need to learn patience. If you want that, do you think this is a good idea? Wade, that you say, okay, well, you know, your job is to do the dishes for the next month and you'll earn this amount of money. And if you want to earn more money, I'll give you more jobs. And then you can go buy it yourself. And then you know they're going to take better care of it. What do you think about that?
No, that's a great idea. And another thing parents can do is they can teach them the concept of the 401k, just like we do in our working lives, where you can match money.
I like that. That's a great idea.
Johnny, you save $5 this week, I'll match 50% of that. And again, it allows it to grow faster and they can see it grow over time.
Well, and I did that with my daughters. If you, whatever you save for a car, I'll match it. Now, if you only save $500, can't get much for $1,000. So, you know, there's always incentive like that. So I like that. I love how you think.
Great minds think alike.
What other ways can we teach our kids about money?
Well, I think there's all different kinds of ways, but having them see that budgeting process, they can go through the checkbook. When you get statements in the mail, try to explain to them how that works. Every time that you add to your 401k, why are you doing that? What is retirement?
And it's talking to them about it, educating them.
Absolutely.
Because they're curious, kids are.
It is a very intimidating concept, not only for adults. And so to teach them at a young age to not be afraid of talking about money and what does it mean and why do we do things, I think it's valuable.
How much is an appropriate amount for grade school kids, middle, and high school?
Yeah, every family is unique, and the number one point you want to make is you can't give beyond your means. So the number one rule is that your expenses have to be less than your income. But it does make sense. Even if you start with kids at a young age at $3 a week, as they get older, you can transition some of those responsibilities. You can think of a high school kid who wants to buy their fashion, their clothes. Normally, the parents are doing that. But as they get older, you can increase the allowance and they can be responsible for other items or going to the movies or gas for the car, those types of things. So to me, it does make sense to expand over time the allowance.
And it's so important because, you know, it's our job to teach them, to train them so they are successful in the real world, to give them those tools. And not enough parents are doing that anymore.
Yeah, that's true. It's, as I said before, it's very intimidating. I run into people all the time, and money is very emotionally, people get very emotionally tied to money. So just like anything else, the more you talk about it, the more comfortable people feel about it. You
know, you're right about that. You're right. All right, thank you so much for these valuable tips and for, you know, driving down to see us. That's awesome.
Thanks
for having me. We appreciate it. Thank you for the great tips. Thank you.